Before the video begins, I would like to state a few things. First thing is that these stories are allegedly true. Doesn't mean that they are actually true. It means that the author said it was true, but has not been confirmed by Reddit. The other thing is about my uploading schedule. I just started a new job recently, working at 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. So, to be honest with you, doing a lot of YouTube work is going to cease. I'm not quitting YouTube. I'm just going to be very, 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 very sluggish in uploading any type of content for you guys. So please bear with me. And yeah, well, let's just hop on right into these stories, okay? Bye-bye. My father told me a story once. I'll never forget it, for a few reasons. I think it's the first story he's ever told me as a child. It's also the story of how my grandfather died. But honestly, that isn't the reason. You hear stories on TV, or sometimes you overhear something in a public place. People talk about ghosts and aliens, and you think to yourself, that isn't real. They're making it up. Or they're mistaken. Or they're crazy. Or something like that. You just can't believe it. Until something happens. Something that brings it all together. Connects the dots in a way you didn't think of before. Maybe it happens to you. Maybe you hear the same story again and again, happening to different people. It doesn't take long for the world to become a lot bigger than you thought it was. As I said, this is a story my father told me, but I never believed it, even though he swore up and down it was true. It wasn't until I started clicking around the internet I started to believe. I started to hear other stories just like the one my father told me. It didn't take me long to believe in the rake. That's not what my father called it, of course. He never used the internet in his life. He wouldn't know what the consensus has taken to name it. When he chose to call it something other than it or that thing, he called it Skinwalker, after an old Cherokee tale his grandfather told him. But I'll tell you the story, the way he told it to me. We were out hunting one night, he'd tell me. Coyotes. We'd kill them for $50 a skin. They lived on a dairy farm in Ohio. They'd kill the calves sometimes. We do it every night, because we needed the money. Sometimes, while we were out, we'd come on a deer and kill it. Our landlord didn't mind, and it could be feed our family for a few nights and save us some money. Anyway, we were done making our rounds and heading home, walking, because we didn't have a car or some four-wheeler back then. We cut through the woods. That's when we came up to on it. Blood everywhere, splattered on the trees, in the grass, in the creek, everywhere. At first, we figured it was a pack of coyotes. We've seen it sometime. They can't scavenge and start hunting deer or cattle. The worst was when they bred with feral dogs. But this wasn't like that. See, when a pack of dogs, or wolves, or coyotes attack something, they do it right. They'll pick off one that's weak or sick or old or just small. They'll hunt it, draw one to a corner, some place it can't get out of, and they'll run it right to the biggest one, the alpha. And that deer will never see that alpha. It might hear it, but it won't see it. It will just notice that its throat's gone. And then it'll drop dead. It's quick, it's clean. That wasn't what happened here. Something had run up on a den of deer. Coyotes won't attack a den, wolves neither, because they get too much of a fight. There were 3, I think. 3 bodies, just torn apart. You see the head here, a leg here, a torso there. Predators don't do that. They don't leave behind scraps. What had done this hadn't done it for food. It had done it for fun. But we didn't know that. We saw a bunch of carcasses and we think it's something we gotta take care of. I remember my dad telling me to go home. He thought it was a pack of feral dogs. But I wasn't leaving him. And I damn sure wasn't walking through 2 miles of woods alone, with nothing but a .22 and a pocket knife. He was only 13 at the time, so a .22 rifle was about the only gun he could reliably use. Dad had the shotgun, and I wasn't going anywhere without it. It took me a while to convince him, but finally we began tracking whatever did that. It wasn't hard either. We just followed the blood. Either that thing bled a deer before it got away, or it dragged one for a mile. I don't know. I don't know that I'd never seen my dad scared before that night. We started hearing noises. I've been in a lot of woods in my life. I've been all over the world. And ain't never heard noises like I heard that night. I heard things screaming. Heard deer and fox and rabbits and raccoons and birds just scared. Keep in mind, this is maybe 12 or 1 o'clock. Except the fox and some birds, nothing was supposed to even be awake. But they weren't just awake, they were moving. I saw flocks of birds that night flash straight into trees, just trying to get out of there. We came up on a pack of coyotes, nearly shot a couple thinking it was what we were looking for us. But then we saw they were running towards us. They ran right past us, didn't even notice. Then some deer did the same. Then some rabbits, squirrels, foxes, even a couple of wild hogs. These things weren't supposed to be eating each other, and the only thing they cared about was getting out of there. We should have put it together that maybe whatever we were tracking down, it wasn't something we were supposed to see, and it wasn't something we could kill. I don't know why we didn't just go home. I guess we were curious. I think that my dad's nature to go towards trouble, to fight, and knowing what I knew about what my father did during the war, my nature was to stay close to him. We finally get into an open valley. It was normally a soy field, but it wasn't in season, so it was just flat dirt. We saw the tracks. Then a lot of animals fleeing the forest had paved over the land. But where the deer blood was, nothing had taken a single step, like they were leaving it for us to find. The tracks were shallow. Whatever it was couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds, but that didn't mean much. A bobcat weighing 40 pounds wet nearly tore out of my damn throat once. All that means is that it's quick and it's hard to hit. So we followed the tracks. and it doesn't take us long to find where it is. There's this old schoolhouse that sits on top of a hill. Half of it had been ripped out by a tornado, but nobody lived there. Not for a long time. We caught homeless people in there, sometimes, or druggies looking for a safe place to shoot up. We figure maybe that was it. Maybe it was some sick kid riding a high. But we didn't think that for long. We get within 50 yards, and we hear this noise. A screeching kind of sound. It was sort of made up of two different sounds. One was a high-pitched screech. Another was a low-pitched growl. It was making both at the same time. We get within 20 yards, and we hear this sound. I can remember thinking that it sounded like paper being torn apart, while someone was swinging water in a bucket back and forth. Dad looks at me, kneels down and whispers, "I gotta stay behind him, because we're about to corner him. Any animal will fight when it's cornered, especially when it's a predator. But we can tell by the tracks that it's just one. He tells me it's probably a single feral dog, probably rabbit." The plan is to sneak up on it while it's eating, shoot it, and then keep shooting it until it don't move anymore. Then slit its throat. If it gets to Dad, it's my job to shoot it or stab it to get it off him. So he walks up, and I'm right behind him, just a tad to his side, so I can see what it is. I wish to this day I hadn't. It was leaning over a carcass, tears off his flesh, and throws what it doesn't nibble at a side. There's blood all over the brick, glistening in the moonlight. It's pale, white, human looking, but not quite human. Had arms and legs like a human, but it sat like a monkey, hunched over. Its hands weren't normal. It had long fingers with claws at the end. So we see that, and my dad hesitates. He wasn't about to fire on a person, so he clears his throat to try to get it to turn around. I swear to God, all the noises just ceased. I ain't ever heard true silence before that, and not after it. But for 2 seconds, nothing made any noises. Which made it all the louder when it turned around, made a shrill cry, and jumped on Dad. He got a shot off. I think he missed. If he hit the thing, it didn't mind, but it was on him. Tears parts of him off. I start shooting it with the .22, point blank, but it barely bled the thing. I got all 5 rounds, and then I started hitting it with the gun butt, but it wasn't budging. It didn't even register that I was there. It clawed my dad, taking out bits of his flesh. It started on his torso, ripping off the skin, his tit. Then it moved up. It tore off his throat, tore off his nose, his eyes. It scalped him. Then it started digging in and ripped off the bottom half of his jaw, the little bones, and that tube in your neck, then his ribs. I don't exactly remember what happened, but somehow my dad's knife ends up in this thing's shoulder, and my dad ends up on my back. I'm running, and by God, I'm running faster than I'd ever run before or after, and it's following me. I end up back in the woods, opposite the ones we've been in. I'm heading towards my landlord's house, cause it's a half a mile away. I can hear this thing, screeching and moaning. I hear the tree branches crack and get thrown around. It sounds like someone's taken an axe to every single tree I pass. It's cracking so loud and often, but I just ain't looking back. Finally, I trip into gravel. I look up and there's my landlord and a bunch of his buddies, drinking around a campfire. I scream and I cry, and they come over. I'm telling them to call an ambulance, and he looks at me. I'll never forget what he said. "What is that on your back?" he asked me. Just as he said it, he saw one of those god-awful flannel shorts my dad wore everywhere. It was what was left of my dad. Most of his head, his torso, but nothing after the waist. Suddenly we hear it, screeching. He grabs me. My dad is thrown on the ground. I'm fighting him, crying, because I think we can still save him, somehow. But my dad had been gone before I even picked him up. He has to pick me up and throw me inside before I come with him. He and his buddies were all inside, and they're locking doors and getting guns. The landlord's asking me, what happened? But I just don't know what to tell him. He pieced enough of it together to understand that there was something dangerous there. All the lights into the house are on, and someone called the cops. They'll be there, but in 15 minutes. We looked outside, and I see it walk in front of the fire they made. Don't know what it is. One of them says it looked like an ape. Suddenly, something goes through the window. We shoot at it, but it ain't the thing. It's my landlord's dog. Just the body, though. Not his head or legs. We start pushing things in front of doors and windows. When we hear something in the garage, I remember one of his friends saying that the doors were open. We hear metal and glass just get ripped apart. We put a couch and a TV in front of the door to the garage. It banged around some more, but then it got quiet. Not silent like it was before. We could hear it move around some. And the guys were talking, making sure the guns were ready. Someone hands me a pistol. No sooner did I cock the hammer back did we hear something shatter upstairs. Then we heard a screech again. Except now it was louder, and it didn't echo and fade out, because it was inside. We all rushed to the one door leading upstairs, and we got to it just as the thing did. It opened it just a bit, and 5 men just slammed it through. He got his hands through. Someone with a shotgun took care of that. Put the barrel right up to his wrist and pulled the trigger. Cuts his hand off clean. That only pissed it off though. It started pushing on that door, clawing. We were on one side, pushing as best as we could. And it was on the other, doing the same. That wood just wasn't going to hold. So someone tells us to keep our heads down. Suddenly the top half of the door is just gone. My ears are ringing, and there are splinters everywhere. 2 or 3 of them just unloaded on the top of that door. I don't really know where I went after that. The police got there. I was still glued to that door. What was left of it. The sun was up before they got me off it. They put me in a hospital for a while. A lot of people talked to me, but I didn't talk back. Not for a long time. When I got back home, I got a job for a landlord, working on the farm. We didn't talk much, not about the thing. But I signed up for the Army when I was 19. And he sat me down to drink some scotch as they sent off. I asked him, right away, what the police told me. The story they went with was a wild animal, probably a wolf, or maybe a bear that had migrated north. I asked them how they could say that, Well, they had the hand. He looks at me, stunned. He tells me that the hand never made it back to the station. The cop who got in the car, in his car wrecked, drove him to a tree, died on impact. The hand was never found. Probably taken away by an animal. The cops, when they would acknowledge the hand existed at all, said it was simply the paw of a bear that looked like a human hand. I never talked to my landlord again. He went missing when I was in basic. The cops never found him. They said he owed some people some money and just ran away. But I don't think it's that simple. And went back to his woods. I never went back to those woods. I wouldn't even if I had the whole goddamn U.S. Army on my back. But that was a lie. When my mother died, I don't think my father felt he had anything left. And that he might as well settle old scores. He went to those woods. He never came back. The FBI was called. They did a show for everyone involved. But I knew they weren't really looking. I had to get one drunk and slip him a few 50s before he finally told me that they get a few calls about those woods every year. About someone up and vanishing. Well, that was all he wanted to tell me. Before he got up and left the rest of his team, he wrote "The Rake" onto a napkin. I didn't know what it meant until I searched for it on the internet. Honestly, I would have rather not known. As legend goes, to become a skinwalker you must attain priesthood, and then kill a member of your own family. Then and only then you gain the powers to shapeshift. Then and only then are you a true skinwalker. According to local folklore, a man had done just that. An Indian priest had supposedly not only killed one, but 5 immediate members of his family. They never caught this man. He disappeared into the woods, never to be seen again. When Jason and Alex set out for their camping trip, they knew all the old legends, and they laughed at the idea that a skinwalker would come get them if they trespassed on the old Indian land. The same land that had supposed murders had taken place. And why should they believe in the legends? A man becoming a beast was probably the most ridiculous imaginable. Jason and Alex were brothers. They spent their entire lives together until Jason had gotten married. Then Jason moved away and started a family. But not Alex. Alex stayed in their hometown, tending to their parents, making an honest living off the land, and tried to be a good person. And Alex had succeeded at this. He hadn't broken a commandment in years, and was well on his way, well, in his own mind, to heaven. 3 years had passed between their last get-together, and 3 more might have passed if Alex didn't insist on a camping trip. But insist he did, and there they were. It was getting dark, and the 2 of them were laying out under the stars. They were deep in the woods, and they had no GPS or maps, but they knew the path back from where they were. They hadn't gone there as kids. Never knew. Huh? Alex replied. He only caught bits and pieces sometimes. We can never let Dad know, Jason reiterated. Know what? That we stayed on the old Indian land past dark. We promised him as kids, and I wouldn't want to upset him now. He's getting pretty close to dead. And if we started an argument now, we may not resolve it in time for, you know. Just don't tell him or Ma, okay? Okay, no problem. They both were silent for a while, until up creeped a small raccoon. Well, look at that, Alex called, as he pointed towards the critter. It stared at them for several minutes, not moving, not attempting to flee when they motioned towards it. It stayed almost perfectly still, and then finally it left. Minutes later came a deer. Again the creature stayed and watched them. Unwavering determination glared in its eyes. For about 2 hours, the duo was kept awake as every animal they knew to live in the forest, and some they were almost sure didn't inhabit the area, came to gaze upon them. The final animal was a gray wolf. It slowly moved towards them, and when it was 5 feet away, it stopped. Don't move, don't panic, it'll go, Jason assured Alex. The wolf slowly stood up on its hind legs, and then its limbs began to contort and pop. Horror slid over Jason and Alex's face as they saw the fur tear open, revealing light brown flesh underneath. Finally, they gazed upon what looked like a man with a wolf head. The skull of the wolf split open like a melon, the fur sliding off of it, the bone chipping and falling like a fragile eggshell, and in its place slowly grew out the head of a man. The man now stood before the paralyzed brothers. They couldn't seem to move. This is my land, said the man, with an almost supernatural smile. Now, mister, I'm going to have to ask you to get, Alex trailed off. Get the fuck away from us, Jason said as fiercely as he could. The man began to laugh. As he continued to laugh, the pitch changed. It grew deeper, from that of a man to that of a demon, and soon it sounded as if Satan himself was bellowing out at them. The man's skin grew black as coal, and his eyes yellow like a cat's. His demonic laughter echoed through the forest as he drew closer and closer. The brothers being unarmed, they had no choice other than to flee, and that's what they did. They ran as fast as they could, except instead of out to their cars, they were cornered into running deeper into the woods. For hours they seemed to play cat and mouse. Several times animals they passed would burst open into a grotesque manner, revealing the deranged man, but they continued to run. Finally reaching a cabin, they ducked inside. They were filled with fear, and the brothers felt that leaving the cabin would end in their deaths. What they found in that cabin made them regret their ignorance on legends. For the main bedroom of the cabin was corpses, at least 100 of them. Every animal they had seen that night was there, along with some larger bodies, some human bodies. It was then that the man burst into the room, except he was once more a wolf. In his deep voice he snickered out, "Welcome home." The following week the authorities found the cabin during their search for Jason and Alex. Both brothers' faces looked as if they were eaten by an animal of some sort. 6 days later, a security camera several states over caught Alex filling up a car with gas. Several eyewitnesses also reported seeing the dead man, and on nearly all accounts he was seen smiling a wide, toothy, unnatural grin. I like the desert night. They say it's dangerous to be out here, but I like it. It's good to sit by a campfire and drink a beer. I hear there isn't any noise or traffic. You can see all the stars because there aren't any electric lights to chase them away. Sometimes the wind sings to you, but then somebody usually comes along and messes it up somehow. Mostly it's drunks who want to beat you up because you're from the reservation. So when I heard pebbles shifting somewhere off to my left, the hairs on my back of my neck started to tingle, and my hand inched a little closer to my Bowie knife. The figure that came walking out of the darkness didn't look very threatening. Just an old man wearing traditional Navajo clothing and leaning on a crooked walking stick as he shuffled quietly towards me. "Getting cold?" came the old man's voice, dry as the desert. I expected him to say more, but instead he just sat down across the campfire from me, laying the walking stick casually across his lap. There was something about him that made me uneasy, and my apprehension increased when his hand vanished into a leather pouch that hung from his belt. But he pulled forth only a crumpled pack of cigarettes, holding them slightly towards me. "Smoke?" "Sure," I replied, as my nerves began to relax. When he tossed me the pack, I noticed there were only 2 cigarettes left inside. I took one and tossed the pack back to him. I held my chrome Zippo towards him, but he instead took a wooden match from behind his ear, scraping it against a small gray rock that dangled from a leather cord worn around his neck. The sudden flare of light illuminated his ancient, weathered face, and his eyes seemed to sparkle eerily for a moment. Then he sat smoking silently. "Danger's out here all night, you know," he spoke softly after a while. "Lots of things come out at night. Even things nobody believes in anymore. They still come around sometimes." I smiled a little. "You mean ghosts and goblins?" "Maybe ghosts," he answered after considering it a moment. "Not goblins, I don't think. Not even sure what a goblin is. But there are other things, too. Things like the Skinwalker. You know about him?" A sudden chill the length of my spine as the old man studied me quietly. "Mom used to tell me stories about them when I was little," I mumbled. "Then you know what can happen," said the old man. "They take the shape of a man and wear the skin of a man, but they're really more like an animal underneath. They have powers too. Folks used to say only a shaman could defeat them." He turned his attention to the campfire. His image seemed to ripple behind the waves of heat rising from flames. Embers danced around him like angry red fairies. Lots of other things out here too," he continued. "The Wendigo, the Chupacabra, all sorts of things. They don't come around much anymore, but sometimes they do." Silence settled over us like a damp woolen blanket. The campfire seemed to begrudge us what little heat it was providing. The stars twinkling above seemed suddenly to be laughing silently, sharing some sinister joke among themselves. The thin slice of moon sank behind a lone cloud bank, as though unwilling to witness whatever might transpire. The beasts attacked us without warning. I felt claws sinking into my back as a great weight fell upon me. Then it was gone, and I rose to see the old man falling backwards. Whatever was on top of him wasn't visible, but I could see jagged rips appearing in his clothing and in his flesh. Then suddenly he was thrusting in the walking stick upward, and there was a terrible screeching sound. The creature fell backwards into the fire and became visible as it writhed in flames. I can't really describe it. Imagine a pale white maggot taller than a man. Its bloated mushy body bristling with claw-like barbs. Something like a mouth at one end, with rows of shark-like teeth lining the inside. A clump of black eyes that seemed completely lifeless as it rose from the fire and again hurled itself towards the old man. I'm not a hero. My brain was screaming for me to get out of there, to just run away, anywhere. to just get away. But then I heard the old man screams, and I saw the empty cigarette pack lying crumpled on the ground, and something inside me stopped shaking and started getting angry instead. I tore away my clothes, and then tore away my skin as well, revealing my true form. I was springing towards the ugly monstrosity before I really had time to think about it, which was probably just as well. I struggled with the creature, attacking savagely with my own teeth and claws. I caught a glimpse of the old man rising weakly to his feet. His walking stick was beginning to glow faintly, casting an eerie green light upon him as he moved forward. He plunged the stick into the creature's side. The thing stopped biting at my face and made that deafening screech sound again. But this time it didn't stop screeching for a long time. I'm not sure if it died or just went someplace else when it faded from view. I hope it died. The old man reached down to recover his walking stick from where it had fallen, watching me carefully. It's difficult for me to speak when I'm in my true form, but I can manage if I concentrate. What was it? I managed to ask. No idea, he answered in a puzzled frown. We stood staring at each other for a moment. You're gonna need a new shirt, I pronounced quietly, pointing a talon at his torn and ruined clothing. That's nothing, he chuckled. You're going to need a new skin. But then his smile faded, his grip tightening on the walking stick as he studied me in the campfire's flickering light. You can relax, I lisped. Shining skin won't work on me. His eyes drifted uncertainly to his walking stick. Still, he said softly, I'm supposed to destroy you. Yep, I hissed. Same here, old man. We continued staring uneasily at each other for a moment longer. Then the old man's smile slowly returned. Crazy world, ain't it? Crazy world, I agreed. As he turned to go, I glanced around and saw the shredded remains of my jacket. Snagging it with a claw, I turned back towards the old man shuffling away into the darkness. Hey, Pops, I called quietly, tossing him a fresh pack of cigarettes that had been in my jacket pocket. I think I managed something like a human smile. He nodded thanks and then vanished into the desert night. I sat back down beside my campfire. A million stars twinkled overhead. They say it's dangerous being out here alone in the desert, but I like it. Sometimes the wind sings to you, and all you can do is sing back.